Hello again, my name is Rhett Saunders. I am providing a follow-up to the attachment cycle presentation I shared before. Just as a quick recap on the disturbed attachment cycle, my adopted son, who is 8 at the time of this recording, struggles with a broken heart as a result of the disturbed attachment cycle as depicted here. So how do we as parents address the condition of the heart? Much of society puts an emphasis on the sight of misbehaviors and correcting behaviors, instead of addressing the condition of the heart. In other words, it is easier to judge behaviors and throw people into institutions, detention centers, and jail without asking why the condition of their heart is what it is in the first place, and then taking the necessary rehabilitative steps to correct the condition of the heart. Here is a staggering statistic. As per Arrow Child and Family Ministries, 80% of the prison population once was in foster care. So how do we as adoptive parents address the condition of the heart for our little ones that have experienced such trauma and loss right at the beginning of life? Well, it starts inside of the brain. Based on the disturbed attachment cycle explanation, remember when I shared that my son is distrusting and bossy? Well, these responses come from an overreactive and unhealthy fight, flight, and freeze response. But how did this response become so out of control? The part of the brain that is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze is the amygdala. For healthy attachment cycle children, this part of the brain remains a normal size and usually responds to threats in life with an appropriate fight, flight, or freeze response. However, it is different with a child who has experienced a disturbed attachment cycle, and I will demonstrate. A child with a disturbed attachment cycle, when told no, is the equivalent of turning on a switch in the child's brain. The switch then leads to an overreactive amygdala, which begins to grow over time. In this state, children are unable to respond in a logical way. For example, logic and reason, when a child is in this state, will not work. Part of the reason this occurs is because this has been this child's defense mechanism in order to survive. Take, for example, when this child is told no to a Snickers bar right before dinner. Their overreactive amygdala takes over, and this child has shut down to logic and is truly afraid they will never eat again. This child begins to throw a tantrum, which can be a combination of screaming uncontrollably to hitting. For many children in foster homes to orphanages, this has happened over and over and left untreated has reinforced this behavior for these kiddos as normal. So what does a parent do to overcome this? So brace yourself. Say yes to everything. While this sounds easy in theory, it is difficult in practice, as you can imagine. For me, every part of my being as a parent knows that giving a Snickers bar right before dinner is silly and that it will only ruin my child's appetite. However, my child does not know that. They just equate this to, I'm never going to eat again. No matter how much you try to explain to your child that you have lots of food in your cupboards and pantry, and you will not run out anytime soon. Once the trigger is pulled, no logic will work at this point in time. However, there is good news that science does support and suggest through a series of yeses, a child's brain can learn new neural pathways, which will lead to short-circuit responses away from the amygdala. This will result in the amygdala to return back to normal size and response over time. Of course, over time will vary from child to child. Because we are less than perfect parents, we do not always get this right, and sometimes no comes out and it's too late to take it back. So what do we do as parents? Well, we cuddle our son when he's upset and begin to speak to him in a very sweet voice and try to be more empathetic about what he is feeling by saying things like, that was a mean thing that was said, or I understand you are having a rough day and I am sorry. Otherwise, the two options we have to help our child learn new neural pathways are yes and yes, but. Of course, as mentioned before, saying yes to everything is difficult at best. and is only done during a season when building trust for the first time. Then eventually our son graduated to accepting yes, but answers, which is where we are today. Now we can put some constraints on that Snickers bar. This time we can say yes, but in order to get your Snickers bar, I need you to eat all your dinner first. Notice the word no was not used in this sentence. This is done intentionally. So what else works? Positive reinforcement. This truly means accentuating the positive for our son. This means that we do not focus on the negative consequences, but more on the small successes our son has demonstrated. For example, in a classroom, if a teacher has a color scale for behaviors, and once our son has reached red, he will no longer feel like he can do anything to get out of red, and therefore he has no incentive to change his behavior. However, if he is offered several chances to stay in the green or move from yellow to green, then our son feels like at least he has a chance to get it right. Does this always work? No. This is where redos come into play. This means that once our son has misbehaved, instead of scolding, we simply explain what was done wrong. And we as parents need to retrace the steps of his actions by acting it out. Then we ask our son to go ahead and act it out on his own, but this time the right way. This helps to build those new neural pathways that lead away from the overreactive amygdala response. While the techniques explored in this video are short and easy to understand, and in some ways sound like common sense, in practice it equates to a significant investment of time, and results will often vary from child to child. While our son is a work in progress, so am I, as we both journey this out together. If you'd like to ask me any questions, share your comments or thoughts, please feel free to reach out to me anytime at the address that's provided here. Thank you very much for your time.